What is up, Steelers Nation? Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. I'm Noah Strackbine, joined always by my man in the corner, producer Nick Belsky. Find us on youtube.com/All Steelers Talkers. Subscribe anywhere you get your podcast, the Pittsburgh Steelers. We are all watching one name right now, waiting for any domino to fall, and that one name is Cooper Kupp. Well, we got some updates on where the Pittsburgh Steelers might get a little bit of help in that department. Meanwhile, one Pittsburgh Steelers legend is talking about the team's ways, which is very alarming. And another one is urging a trade of their biggest name, which is expected, but also alarming. And if we got time, we're going to dive into a cornerback that might have pitched himself to the rest of the NFL last night that everybody's going, maybe the Pittsburgh Steelers could be a name. It's a good one out here in the city of Pittsburgh. I found out this morning, me and my wife would make the monthly schedule a couple days late, but making the monthly schedule. I learned this morning that outside of Friday of Valentine's Day, there is not a single day on a weekend that my wife is available this month. That is how popular she is, which some will say that stinks. And don't get me wrong, I love hanging out with my wife. She's my best friend. But I will play so much Madden and go to the golf simulator so many times that I'm looking a little bit of a relaxation month in my eyes here in February. How you feel, my friend? Hopefully as good as I am.
Yeah, it sounds like your wife's way more popular than you are, which means I need to meet her and become friends with her because I've been getting shafted in this entire situation, hanging out with you and not the fun one. So
that's very true. It's very true. There's a significant gap between how cool I am and how cool my wife is. And I hear you.
I think I'm in the same boat, so I think we're kind of in the same situation here. But no, I'm feeling good. I'm ready to face the winter because I'm coming back up north. And of course, if I'm going north to Pennsylvania, that means there has to be an ice storm coming. So yeah, I'll get to drive through that tomorrow night, and hopefully everything goes well and I get to join you on Friday, but I think we're good. Knock on wood.
That would be terrifying. It is actually supposed to snow, I believe, on Friday, which best of luck, my friend. That sucks. We didn't talk about this on Monday, and I know nobody wants to hear us talk about groundhogs for the third time, but that little rat, man.
I'm telling you.
Dude, I learned about that today, and I was pissed. I was like, dude, are you kidding me? We're 6 more weeks. It's beautiful outside. This thing's blind. It's never seen its shadow in its life. We just out here saying it does. No, wild actually. Shout out Puxatawny Phil. That I'm not gonna say it. I'm not thinking kind words here. Thinking kind words. All right, let's talk some Pittsburgh Steelers football. Let's start with Cooper Kupp, the name that everybody is eyeing, watching, waiting for throughout this entire week. Is we learned yesterday that there are trades during Super Bowl week, and the Pittsburgh Steelers might be the next one. The next big name wide receiver to fall, the domino to come to the Pittsburgh Steelers to start their offseason may be Cooper Kupp. We talked yesterday about what we'd give up for him, but the biggest factor in it the entire time is the money, because money talks in the NFL. And while Cooper Kupp is still a very good wide receiver, he's worth $20 million right now, and next year it's going to be just under $20 million if whatever team brings him on. He's 32 years old. He only played 12 games the last 2 seasons, both in each season. And you're looking at a guy that, when on the field, is fantastic, but you need him to be on the field to be that guy. Well, the Los Angeles Rams, in a feat of desperation here to get rid of Cooper Kupp, are willing to take on some of his salary, which is telling me that they are super duper desperate in this entire trade situation. And they're just looking to move on as quickly as they can to get anything and everything that they possibly can in return for Cooper Kupp, when realistically they know chances are they're not going to get anything from Cooper Kupp, or if they are, it's going to be very minimal. So how do they juice that offer up? Not take an L on his contract, which they would if they released him. Say, we'll take an L on his contract and we'll get something for him. That's our solution, our middle ground in this one. So I'll ask you to start the show today. What's your number? If you're the Pittsburgh Steelers and you're calling the LA Rams, or the Rams are calling you and saying Cooper Kupp is on the market, he's on the block, we're looking to get rid of him, we're looking to move fast. What are you looking in return to say, okay, great, you take on this much of his salary because I'm only going to pay him this much money this season, and we'll make a decision on 2025 or 2026, when we get there. What is that number to you?
I would look at them if I was the Steelers and say, I want to pay him $15 million a year. Can you make that happen? I mean, they'd have to eat, I think it's what, 14 million of that salary. But the other option is if they can't find another trade suitor, you're going to have to cut him. And that's going to be a lot of dead cap that you're going to have on your hands and nothing in return for it. So if I'm the Steelers, that's what I'm looking at. I'm saying, hey, can we get Cooper Kupp under contract for next year at $15 million? That's just a hair over $1 million per game that he's played the last couple seasons. And I think that's worth it if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers, especially considering when this guy plays, like you mentioned, he plays well. He averages 60, 70 yards a game. And if he's healthy a whole season, the last time he did it, he won the Triple Crown. So I don't think that's left in the tank, but I still think there's a lot left in the tank for a guy who could become a very, very good option for the Steelers offense. He's an elite guy out of the slot and somebody that can help open up the middle of the field as something that they can actually utilize next year, which is something they didn't have this year. And it was a glaring issue all season long. So I'm saying 15 million. I want to pay them that much. Can you make that happen if you're LA?
I agree. 15 million bucks is where I would go. So what does that do? Yesterday, I said that if they go after Cooper Kupp, they could still go after T. Higgins. They could still go after a first-round guy. You seem to disagree with that. If you're paying Cooper Kupp $15 million, does it open the door for another offseason acquisition where acquisition. Thank you. That word, man. It's the word of the week. It's the word of the week. We already have one, or we always have one. It's that one this week. Does that open the door for T. Higgins? Does that open the door for another name to come in here for the Pittsburgh Steelers to double dip at wide receiver before the NFL draft?
I still think you're looking at going a different direction. I don't think that you're going to go pay, especially if it's T. Higgins, because that T. Higgins contract, we talked about it, it's going to start at 30. So paying $45 million for those two and having George Pickens, well, yes, it'd be great to say, hey, listen, our wide receiver room is Pickens, Kupp, Higgins. That would be phenomenal. But at the same time, I think the Steelers, as we've talked about, are more than one piece away. So I think you get Cooper Kupp, and then I think you go in the draft, and that's where you get that other receiver. I don't think you pay, especially $30 million to a guy like T. Higgins if you're paying Cooper Kupp 15 plus whatever you have to pay to get him to Pittsburgh.
I agree, but disagree. I agree that there are more than one need. There are significant needs for the Steelers. But I also think that if you could get Justin Fields for under 20 million bucks a year, which is a very real possibility. If they don't, that changes a lot of this. But if they can do that, then I think at that point, your defense is paid. Your offense, you are going to draft a running back. Even if you sign Jaylen Warren and another guy, that's not going to cost, what's it going to cost? Combined $6 million, $7 million max for either one of them. I think that your offensive line, you won't add anything that's expensive there. On the defensive side of the football, you're going to have to sign a corner, which is probably going to come with some money. And you're going to have to sign at least one defensive tackle, probably two defensive tackles. But if you get rid of Larry Ogunjobi, you just added $13 million to your salary cap that you could then spend on another Larry Ogunjobi. And I think that opens it up. You'd have to restructure a lot of things, and you'd have to move on from some guys, and you would be addition by subtraction a little bit. I agree with that one. But I do think the possibility, like, it makes sense financially to pay two wide receivers this offseason if you could do everything else and do it well. Like, if you're getting Dante, what are you signing Dante Jackson for? $6-7 million? Mm-hmm. Probably, right? Yeah. You're going to pay the defensive line. You're going to pay, and you should pay. If the Steelers cheap out on the defensive line, they have messed up majorly. You are paying money for those defensive linemen, and it may be two of them, and that's where things could come into play. And to be honest with you, like the Justin Fields thing, we're hoping it's under 20. If it's 25, you're paying him 25. because you're not going to let him walk. What's your other option? Like it's 1 year. You're going to pay $25 million to take a risk. That's what you should do if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers. Don't play it safe. So there's a lot of variables. I agree with that. If the whole thing goes perfectly, I think the possibility of both of them is there. I'm not saying it's guaranteed or likely, but it's there.
Yeah, I think it's a lot more likely if you're going to see them double dip in free agency. I think it's a lot more likely that you see them go after a guy like Marquise Brown, who's probably going to come in at closer to like 8 or 9 than it is for them to go after any of the big dogs, any of the T. Higgins, even Chris Godwin. I think that money is going to go up high, even though he is injury prone as well. He's on the open market. He's going to get a lot of money. Steph Diggs is available, but feels like he's going to end up back in Houston. I don't want that in the Pittsburgh Steelers locker room to pair with George Pickens, or, well, as people that cover the team and profit off of them being drama filled, maybe you do want that. But no,
I was going to say, dude, content-wise might be
content-wise,
fantastic. We might have a blast. Yeah.
But I also don't have enough aspirin. I don't think there's enough in the city of Pittsburgh to deal with that. So I don't think that they're going to go after anybody like that. I think it makes more sense if they're going to double dip to go after an $8 to $10 million receiver that can come in and be that number 2, like a Marquise Hollywood Brown, more so than anybody $30 million. But I still think if you get Kupp, your best option is going to the draft after that.
All right. So what is your max price on that second one? Max price, not realistic price, max.
If you're spending 15 on Kupp, and that's what we're kind of operating under the belief of, I think my max price for that one is probably that $10 million, saying, hey, 25 for 2 receivers, bring them in here next to George Pickens, especially whenever you're saving some money on Justin Fields. If that's what you do intend on doing, then you're looking at 40 mil for your quarterback and 2 of your 3 receivers. And I think you're pretty happy with that.
I agree with that. I think I'd go 30. I think I'd go 30. Because if you're going to sign Higgins to 30, it might as well go. And I think the gap, like, you could probably go, like, if Christian Kirk gets released, you could probably go Christian Kirk for 15. He's making 18 now. You could probably go Christian Kirk for 15. I think that's a, pretty good jump. To Cooper Kupp and Christian Kirk with George Pickens, if you're going to keep him in a draft pick, that's not bad. It's not a bad receiver room compared to what they have. Hollywood Brown, I like, but like, do I like Hollywood Brown because he, like, Patrick Mahomes makes everybody look good, or do I like Hollywood Brown because, he is good? I think that's a question. And I like Hollywood Brown. I'm a big Hollywood Brown guy. Nothing
against the guys that were in the locker room this year, but I would say if you bring in Hollywood Brown, nobody's going to look at that and say, well, it's another Van Jefferson. Well, let's go back 2 years. Well, it's another Allen Robinson. No, you're bringing in somebody who actually has receiving chops and has shown that he can do it at a very high level, not just as a wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4 at the NFL.
Yeah, I agree. Last question here I got, and then we'll move on because we're talking way too much Cooper Kupp here. If you were to pick George Pickens and T. Higgins, or George Pickens, Cooper Kupp, and a draft pick, what would you go?
George Pickens, Cooper Kupp, and a draft pick. I think it's more sustainable.
Ooh.
I do. I think it's more sustainable because either way, Higgins or Kupp, you're getting somebody who has a checkered injury history. But if you get Kupp plus a draft pick in this year's draft, whether that be Burden, whether that be Abuka, I think you're a little bit more safe when it comes to next year and further beyond.
Okay. All right. We'll leave it there. We're going to move on. We've talked a lot of Cooper Kupp, too much Cooper Kupp, I think, in the last 2 days for a guy that 32 years old. I mean, shout out Cooper Kupp, man. Would be an awesome pickup for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I very much so enjoy Cooper Kupp as a person. So I think I'd have a good time with Cooper Kupp in the locker room. Let's talk another wide receiver that made a legendary Pittsburgh Steelers quarterback. Well, agree with him. Julian Edelman, the other week at this point, this was not within the last couple of days, somewhat roasted the Pittsburgh Steelers on how they never change anything and maybe never will change anything. He said on his podcast, Names with Games, quote, "You know exactly what they are doing, and they still do what they did. They still do the same goddamn shit as when I was playing Tomlin's defense. I'm like, we still have linebackers covering the 3 slot. Every time we play Steelers, I have at least 9 catches. You would think that they would change it, but no, they don't. They do what they do." I mean, nothing that we know. I don't think anybody listening to this right now can sit here and say, I disagree with that. Maybe very few people. Well, Ben Roethlisberger is one of those people who also does not agree, or who does agree with that, saying on his podcast, Football, and quote, there's definitely truth to it. You got to change with the times. We're not trying to confuse people like other teams do. Other teams are confusing people. Look at the end of the Bills-Chiefs game. Steve Spagnuolo sent a corner blitz. They sent it for the first time all game in a situation where you would never expect it, and you need it, and they got home. I think that we just got we're just better than you. We're going to line up and we're going to beat you. That works to a certain extent. At some point, you have to decide that you're going to throw some different wrinkles at teams. There's something that the Steelers, they got to get away from. I mean, of everybody the Pittsburgh Steelers have had in the last decade, the one name that when he says there is truth to us not doing anything crazy, there is truth to the Pittsburgh Steelers being stagnant, the same, and never changing. The name that you listen to is Ben Roethlisberger, because he was there through it all, through the start and right up until 2-3 years ago of Mike Tomlin. And in those 3 years, nothing's changed except for the quarterback. And the results remain the same. Alarming. We'll start with alarming. I think that's the word that summarizes everything. Nothing that comes as a surprise to any of us. Nobody is sitting around saying, are you kidding me? The Pittsburgh Steelers, they change all the time. They are the league's most adjustable franchise. That's what they are. Nobody says that. They all say the same stuff. The Steelers don't change. They're stagnant. It's stale. It's old. The Steelers' way is potentially dead. There are various ways to word it and make it more or less aggressive. Ben just simply said, yeah, it's true. It's true. And I think when Ben says it, and Ben says a lot of things that you go, all right, Ben's getting a little meaty-ish. Ben's getting a little podcaster on us. This is one where you go, Ben's definitely been holding that one in. That's something Ben's been thinking about for 10 years and hasn't said. And he says a lot of things, but this is the one where, yeah, the right time, right place. Yep, you know what? They don't change. They haven't changed in a long time. It's not going to happen. Mike Tomlin will not listen to Ben Roethlisberger and say that's the reason that we have to change. Ben called us out. Now it's time for us to change everything we know and to throw wrinkles at teams because Ben Roethlisberger said that it's an issue. But I think you should take it as a warning that two legends in the NFL, two greats in the NFL, different variations, I understand, are both agreeing. One of them on your team, one of them your Hall of Fame quarterback that you worked with through your entire career up until 3 years ago, all agree that you need to change, that things need to be different. And they both highlight your side of the football. Mike Tomlin should definitely take this one as a warning, as a bit of a wake-up call. If he hasn't taken anything else as a bit of a wake-up call. And I think this is the best part of this, because Mike Tomlin's not listening to anybody. He care less, man. He don't care about nothing. And I bet you he hasn't even heard Ben, because the offseason's here, which means he's not meeting with the PR department every single day, which means he has no idea what's going on outside of his home and UPMC Rooney Sports Complex. But I think the more former players that start talking about this, the better. Because the more former players that keep talking about how the Pittsburgh Steelers need to change, and this is why, and we're saying this from experience, maybe the more that it does get to names like Omar Khan and Art Rooney and Mike Tomlin, where they say, shit, maybe we do have to change. Maybe that is something that needs to come. It's not going to happen soon. I don't know if it happens at all, but I will say that it's a good thing that these people, especially Ben Roethlisberger, are talking, because that will spark the conversation further. Mike Tomlin's not listening, but maybe he should be. I use the word alarming with this one. Is it as alarming as I think it is that Ben's out here saying what he's saying?
I wouldn't go with the word alarming. I would go with the word confirmation, because I think everybody that's watched this Pittsburgh Steelers team thinks the same thing. Maybe they don't know it at a base level, but watching it, they're saying, yeah, a lot of people drew comparisons between this year's offense and Matt Canada's offense. And while I think that's a bridge too far, I can see how you could make the jump. I can see how on the surface you could say they're just different variations of crap. This year, it was the toss. Last year was the jet sweep. Either way, you look at the last 5 weeks of Arthur Smith's offense and you look at all of Matt Canada's time in Pittsburgh, it's crap. No matter what variation it is, it's crap. It wasn't working. It wasn't good. We saw some glimmers last year with Justin Fields and even at times with Russell Wilson of that offense being proficient. Shoot, they went for what, 500 plus yards against the Cincinnati Bengals in a road game. But at the end of the day, their philosophy is flawed. Their philosophy is outdated. And that is something that we can see as two people that have never stepped foot on an NFL field and played in actual NFL action. So if somebody on the field or somebody that was on the field in this organization is saying that, it's just confirmation from what everybody else is seeing. This offense philosophically needs to change. From the ground up, it needs to change. And Ben saying too many times it feels like they're just lining up and saying we're going to be better. Doing that with Van Jefferson as a number 2 wide receiver is a horrible, horrible misuse of any opportunity that you get as an NFL coach or as an NFL player. Like, again, we bash Van Jefferson a lot. He was miscast as a number 2. As a number 3 or number 4, he is perfectly serviceable, but he was miscast, and that is as much on the coaching as it is, even more on coaching, that it is on the player. So I just feel like this is confirmation for everybody that's been watching because everybody is seeing the same thing.
Yeah, I agree. And again, like Edelman's talking about the defensive side of the football, and that's super alarming. And when Ben says it, it means that he's talking about like there are these reports coming out that Arthur Smith stopped Russell Wilson from changing plays at the line of scrimmage. And you're going, wow, that's concerning. What's more concerning is that the offense sucked after that happened, that the offense just completely fell apart after that happened. And you could blame a number of things, but I mean, if it's going to come out that at some point Arthur Smith said you can't change plays at the line of scrimmage anymore, and things just got worse, what's going on there? You know, why is maybe the players themselves are starting to realize more and more that this is an issue, man, and that this is not something we should be doing, and there should be change. And this system on both sides is just not working right now. I mean, we came up with at least I came up with the hypothetical, the conspiracy that the person that the Steelers defense was talking about could have been Teryl Austin or Mike Tomlin or the people calling and controlling the defense, that could have been who this defense was talking about. That's where I'm at with this. Is I'm a little concerned, you know, that players are starting to realize that this is an issue. And I think Edelman's saying it, like we get asked all the time, why do guys want to come to Pittsburgh? Why would you want to come to Pittsburgh? And my response is because it's Mike Tomlin, because this franchise has history, because guys in the NFL view Mike Tomlin and everything else very differently. I mean, I'm sure a good chunk do, but Edelman is revealing that there are many out there that see this as the Steelers they're an old school football team that isn't built to win right now. And that's an issue. I think it's alarming when players start to say it. There's a difference between your offense is predictable, your defense is predictable, and guys saying, yeah, it's because they've never done anything different in the last 20 years, and that's why it's not working. Like, that's when predictable is a concern, but that could be a play caller. Nothing changing is your head coach. That is your philosophy. That is your general manager. That is your owner. And that's where this gets a little concerning. This is not you could change personnel and things change. You know, Keith Butler was doing it when Julian Edelman was there, and Teryl Austin was doing it when Julian Edelman was there. Different people, same outcome. So I think it's concern. This is just like you said. This is something where notable. It's as notable as it gets that you're looking at this going, okay, keep talking, because this is not a good place to be. I mean, will it change anything? No. At the end of the day, the Steelers aren't changing, but it is something that when certain players talk, when former players talk, when Ben Roethlisberger talks about the Steelers in a negative light, that isn't like they sucked in week 15, but is more of a bigger picture thing. You start to pay attention. And I think I think it's important. I definitely think it's important. All right, let's move on to one more legend here. James Harrison, who went on the Nightcap podcast hosted by Chad Ochocinco and Shannon Sharp live at the Super Bowl, and was asked about, well, guy we talked about at the beginning of this show, George Pickens, and what they should do with him. Now, Chad Ochocinco made it very known that he had a conversation with George and that he could promise, he guaranteed it, that there will be no more issues after this talk, that they're good, that he's set in his ways and things are fine. I have no level of confidence in that, none whatsoever, but you got to hope for the best, right? You got to, all right, cool. Thank you, Chad Ochocinco, is what the Steelers should say to Chad Ochocinco, and then go back and say, will it change? Who knows? Probably not. That's what they have to say. James Harrison, on the other hand, he's got a different solution. He was asked about George Pickens and what the Steelers should do, and he said, quote, just from what I'm seeing and what I'm hearing, I don't know. If it was me, I would try and trade him. He continues by saying, I think he's going to want a deal. He's not going to want to come back without a deal. You know what I'm saying? I don't see with his current and past behavior as an organization taking a chance and saying, hey, I'm going to give you this. Me and you have agreed on that a number of times when asked about if the Pittsburgh Steelers should extend George Pickens this offseason. I think it changed. Beginning of the season, we were talking a lot of, you have to extend George Pickens. This is a cornerstone piece. This is what you do. Once all the drama started again, it turned into, all right, George is probably gone. And then this show, according to sources, reported that the Pittsburgh Steelers are ready to move on, that they're ready to go in a different direction from George Pickens if the compensation is right. That idea has not changed. I mean, Art Rooney spoke and very openly admitted that the Steelers always have problems in the wide receiver room, which I think is a concern within itself that I don't know how he bypassed so quickly and was just like, yeah, you know what? It is what it is, man. Like, it is, they just cause problems and we just work with them until the problems boil over. That is wild to me, but if that's how they want to run, I don't control the Pittsburgh Steelers, so just talk about them. James says trade George Pickens. I think there are many people on board with trading George Pickens. I think on the other side of that, there are many people saying, you trade George Pickens, you better convince me that it was the right move, and that's not going to be easy to do. But James Harrison, man, two things. One, probably lost his job as an outside linebackers coach that he was hunting for last year. And two, let me ask whose side of the coin you're on right now. The James Harrison trade him or the Chad Ochocinco, we're good, there will be no more problems, George is fixed.
Is there a middle there? Because I don't believe it'd be different if they trusted the messenger at all, but the messenger is Chad Ochocinco saying, yeah, we got the maturity issues under control. Chad Ochocinco is what, 40 years old? He still doesn't have the maturity issues under control. So am I going to believe that he's going to instill that in George Pickens, who's had these issues over his first 3 seasons as a member of the Pittsburgh Steelers? No, I don't have any faith in that. Now, as far as James Harrison's side is concerned, yeah, he's sitting there saying, this guy's not going to play unless he gets a contract. If that's what happens, then yeah, you trade him, because I'm not giving that guy a contract until I see with my own 2 eyes. I don't care who the messenger is. I don't care if the Lord comes down and tells me George is going to be a saint. I need to see it with my own 2 eyes, because yes, Art, wide receivers cause drama. It happens around the entire league, but also a lot of those times, wide receivers are causing drama because they aren't the number 1 option in the passing game. George was the only option in the passing game, and he still miswrote eye black saying that he's always open. So no, I don't trust that he's going to fix all the maturity issues right away. I need to see it with my 2 eyes. Until that happens, I'm not giving him a contract. And if he's not going to play without a contract, then I trade him. But I think in reality, the situation the Steelers should go with is, we're not going to give you a contract. We might shop you. If we get something that's good enough, we'll trade you. If not, you got to play and prove to us that you can be a productive player without all the bull crap in 2025. Otherwise, it's not going to matter. And then you can take that for what it was. If you have a good year in 2025 and say, I want to leave because you didn't give me a contract, whatever. If you want to come back and you've proven that and have a good year, we'll be more than willing to pay you. But there is no way until I see it throughout an entire season that I'm going to give this guy an extension.
I mean, I definitely agree with that one. There's no chance if I was the Pittsburgh Steelers that I would give George Pickens an extension this offseason. I think George Pickens is on his way out. I believe that if it's not this season, it's probably next season. Even if it'd have to be so flawless this year. Like, I'm talking a changed person to be like, oh,
it
George
doesn't take much. Just keep your mouth shut.
I think it takes way more than that. You got to show up to work on time. You got to show up to the games on time. You got to not say things with the media, but also at the same time, you have to say things to the media because that's part of your job is to talk to the media because that causes negative attention too. And there's a middle ground, you got to find it. George is far away. I mean, I think the issues are deep, and maybe they're fixable.
They're all changed, though. That's my thing. Is like if George wants to do it, George can do it. It's
Agreed.
It's not a difficult thing to do. Show up to work on time. Don't say anything overly stupid when you have a PR team that's going to feed you the answers anyway. So I think George can do it. It's a matter of does he want to do it? And when that's the question, of course, I'm not going to give this guy an extension.
I agree. I agree. I don't think it's coming. I do think a trade is. I think at the end of the day, dude, there's going to be a team that wanted T. Higgins and couldn't get them, that wanted DK Metcalf and couldn't get them, that wanted Cooper Kupp and couldn't get them, and is just saying, George Pickens is right there, man. It's a risk, but we're willing to do it. I do. I don't know who it's going to be, and the compensation's got to be great. Not even good. It's got to be great. But there's in my gut, it feels like there's going to be a team that at the end of all this, it's going to be late, is going to be like, yeah, you know what? Screw it. Here you go. Here's a second round pick. We need a wide receiver. We didn't get one. Here's our second round pick. And I think it's there. If not, yeah, I mean, you keep him for a year. There's no way I'm trusting Chad Ochoa. I mean, I hope he did. Hope it was a very good conversation. But I can tell you from personal experience at 23 years old, I was not listening to my elders. There's no chance, dude. If you were 40 years old trying to give me life advice and I was a top 10 wide receiver in the NFL, I'd be like, Doc, what do you even talk? You don't even know what's going on right now. Do you know who I am? Do you know how good I am at this? Like, we're good, pal. I could show up late to work. We're fine. I would never listen, but I'm me, George, different people. We'll see what happens. That's where James Harrison stands. And again, there's a long way to go, but it's never good when legends are talking about, when they talk about TJ Watt, nobody ever says trade TJ Watt unless you're crazy like Colin Cowherd. When you talk about trading and getting rid of guys, that's when you're like, okay, there's concerns here. These guys, James Harrison was no peach, he was no peach. And he played with AB, man. Like, he played with the worst of the worst. And he's still out here going, yeah, dude, this is such a bad situation. You got to get rid of him. That's when it's like, oh, okay, let's listen. Let's take a breather and let's listen. We'll see what happens. There's a long offseason ahead of us, but interesting stuff from some big names in Pittsburgh Steelers history today. All right. With that said, that's everything on our agenda. We're going to close off the show the same way we do every single day. We are going to answer all of your questions, but first, we're just going to take a quick break here from our boys over at DraftKings. Super Bowl 59 is right around the corner, and it's the perfect time to get in on the action with my partners at DraftKings Sportsbook. Right now, they're giving all new customers $200 in bonus bets instantly after betting just $5. This is your shot to make every last play a moment to be remembered. Don't wait. Download the DraftKings app now and sign up using our code ALLSTEELERS. The crown is yours. Stay in on the action and use your $200 in bonus bets on DraftKings same game parlays for a shot at an even bigger payout. Combine multiple bets together from the same game. I do it all the time. Love the thrill of live betting? DraftKings has got you covered. Bet live on in-progress games right as they happen, making watching the game that much more exciting. If sports betting is not yet available in your state, don't worry. You can still join in on all the fun with DraftKings Daily Fantasy and have the shot to win cash prizes. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. New customers use my promo code ALLSTEELERS and bet just $5 $5 on any wager and get $200 in bonus bets instantly. That's promo code ALLSteelers. Only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Shout out our boys over at DraftKings. Sad week, my friend. Sad week. Last week to bet. But I will say that if TJ Watt hits tomorrow and does win Defensive Player of the Year, that my futures bet, my friend, sitting pretty. Sitting pretty. That is one I go every year because I obviously watch this team every single day of my life for 6 months. And it takes about a week and a half of OTAs with no pads on and really everybody just going quarter speed for me to go, TJ Watt's the best damn player in the NFL. There's just, I don't know what you guys are looking at, but I'm looking at greatness right now. This guy is ridiculous. And I go home and I go, I got to put a futures. I have to. He's going to win Defensive Player of the Year. Like, it's going to happen. I don't see how he doesn't. A lot of times it screwed me. I'll tell you a drunken bar story on that side of things. I was, me and my wife, the year that he won it, were at a brewery, having a good time, drinking, talking to the bartender. I was watching ESPN or whatever, and it was literally the day, 2 days before the season started. It had to be like that Friday because that's like the last time you have like a night out before, February. And we're out there. I'm talking to the bartender, ESPN's on, and they're talking about just like the NFL. And he asked me, like, if I like the Steelers. I told him what I do for a living, blah, blah, blah. He's like, oh, how they looking? I'm like, I don't know, man. I'm sitting here contemplating if TJ Watt's going to win Defensive Player of the Year. And he's like, yeah. He's like, he looks good. I'm like, he's TJ Watt, dude. He looks ridiculous. Like, he looks absolutely ridiculous. And we're going back at it for a while. And I'm like, I don't know, man. I don't know, dude. Like, I don't want to do it. And 2 beers later, he slides his beer over to me and he goes, put it in. And I said, all right, there it is. And TJ Watt, my friend, won Defensive Player of the Year that season. And I should have went back to that brewery and tipped him. Didn't. But if you're listening, pal, you want me a couple of bucks there. And it's very appreciated on the DraftKings Sportsbook app. All right. Let's finish off the show the same way we do every single day. Let's answer all your questions. Make sure you're tossing them in the chat. We'll get to all of them before we head out of here. Nick, I'm going to toss it to you. What do we got?
Yep. Let's kick things off with Michael, who says, hypothetical Steelers sign T. Higgins, Murphy, and Hargrave in free agency. Pick 21 is Ginty, Abuka, Morrison, and Kenneth Grant. All there. Who do you pick?
All right. Murphy. Okay. Miles Murphy. That's who they're getting on top of T. Higgins and Javon Hargrave. It's not a terrible name. It's a risky name. We'll be honest there. I don't think is that who we're talking about, right? That's got to be who we're talking about. Is Miles Murphy? Yeah. If that's the case, I'm going, oh man, dude. I don't know. I think I'm going Genty. I think I'm feeling pretty good about Genty. Morrison would get me. He'd make me think. But Genty's a guy that he shores up your running back room. You got to put a lot of faith in your quarterback room. He obviously helps Justin Fields if that's your decision at quarterback. You have a wide receiver in Higgins. Nowhere in here it says that George Pickens is gone, so you got to feel good about that. You have 2 defensive linemen on top of Keanu Benton, so you could go get a second run in, the second round of the draft, or you could go get a corner in the second round of the draft to pair with Joey Porter Jr. I think that's your only remaining hole. It's a massive one, but I still think Genty fills a role, man, bigger and better than I think anybody on this list.
All right, let's jump down to Real Ish, who says, do you think Khan messed up by drafting Troy over Brian Thomas Jr. and Quinyon Mitchell?
I don't. Like, I think hindsight's 2020, but in the mix, those 3 were 1, 2, 3. Like, you could have picked any of them, and the Steelers' need was tackle. They needed a tackle. They wanted to finish their offensive line. They looked at it and said, there's no more time to waste here. Like, if they had Quinyon Mitchell or Brian Thomas Jr., like, I'm sure it would have worked out really, really well. But maybe Troy works out really, really well next season. And in 2025, we're talking about like, damn, the Steelers have one of the best offensive tackles in the NFL. I think that's a possibility. So at the end of 2025, I think that's when we can answer whether or not the Steelers messed up on Troy Fautanu. But I think after 1 year where you didn't play, there could be no judgment there. You just can't.
Let's go to Realish again, who says, does Tomlin really have all of the say over the Steelers roster?
I would say probably 98% of it. Yeah, 99. There might be like a last minute Rooney calls down saying TJ's signed. Doesn't matter. Here's the deal. Yeah. But I would say for the most part, 99% of it, Mike Tomlin controls everything. Who goes out there, who plays, who doesn't play, who's on the team, who's starting a quarterback. He does it all. That is definitely Mike Tomlin.
Let's go to Madeline, who says, in your opinion, what percentage do you think we stand at with Justin Fields coming back?
That's so hard to know. I would say the Steelers are pretty all in on Justin Fields, but again, they want it for a reasonable price, and that comes down to Justin. I haven't talked to anybody in Justin's party. I have no idea if that's if Justin feels the same way that the Steelers feel in this situation. If he does, I feel pretty good about it, but I don't know. I haven't talked to Justin's side, so I'd just be guessing. I would say 70% is where I'm going to put a guess there.
All right, let's go over to Loswald, who says, would we have more Super Bowls if Cowher had stayed or someone other than Tomlin got hired? All of these comments lately make it seem like this guy is just a big, dumb idiot.
Tomlin is definitely not a big, dumb idiot. He's the farthest thing from it. No, I don't think so. I don't. I think right now this is the season where in most other circumstances, you would look at it going, all right, maybe it is time to move on. That where 31 other teams would look at it after this season and say, you might be out of chances, dude. That might have been the last straw. And there have been examples in the past. Andy Reid is a good one. But that's the thing. Tomlin's going to go to another team, and he's going to win on that other team. And the Steelers might get another Super Bowl out of it. Maybe 2. That would be awesome. And maybe it works out, but maybe it doesn't. And I think that's the risk that you take in this situation. I'm at the point where I'm okay with taking the risk. I don't think it's the best move. I think it's a concerning move, and I wouldn't make it right now, but I would have made it 2 months ago or 2 weeks ago. Wow, January really did feel like a year, didn't it? Yes. But when it comes to Cowher and Tomlin, no, you just have the same amount of Super Bowls.
All right, let's go to Matthew Torres, who wants to know, what are your thoughts on the Steelers grabbing both Isaiah Bond and Donovan Edwards in the upcoming draft?
I'd like both of them. I like Isaiah Bond. I think he's going to fall. I had him as a first-round pick initially. I think he'll go second round, maybe a little bit steeper depending on the draft. Wide receivers are going to come in hot, but there are a lot of teams who have a lot of wide receivers, and there are some that don't, but they need other positions like quarterback. The Steelers, who have like 4 other needs. I think Isaiah Bond is a guy that could fall down. Donovan Edwards, I like Donovan Edwards. I don't think he's my top 5 running back in this draft, and because of that, I would like the Steelers to aim top 5. Henderson, Judkins, Genty, Caleb Johnson, and
Omari and Hampton.
Omari and Hampton. I don't know why I do not remember that guy ever. That would be my 5. I still think he might be right outside of that. I'd be okay with both of them, though. I don't think it's an A+ draft if that's the case, but I like it.
All right, let's jump down to Christopher, who wants to know, could you see a chance of Deshaun Elliott getting a contract extension?
Not this offseason. He's still got 2 more years left on. No, I guess he does only have 1 more year. I think he signed a 2-year deal with the Steelers. Not this offseason. Next offseason, definitely. I would expect Deshaun Elliott to be a guy that the Pittsburgh Steelers keep around for a long time, potentially finishes his career in Pittsburgh. Like, Deshaun's going to be a guy that he gets paid. Minka's probably going to go at some point, and you could just adjust the money. Like, if Deshaun's worth a little bit more at the time, you pay him a little bit more at the time. But Deshaun's 27 years old and maybe 28 years old and probably has 3-4 years left in him. Cool. If he wants to finish that in Pittsburgh, I would let him. I think I look at Deshaun as a guy that will spend more than just this contract with the Steelers. I don't expect an extension to come this offseason, though.
All right, let's jump down to Realish again. Appreciate you. Realish says, would you be on board with Siobhan Revel in the first round if they traded down and picked up another 3rd or 4th rounder and I think he's a number 3 cornerback.
Yeah, I do. I think he's my number 3 corner in the draft as well. My only concern is the ACL. You're coming off a season-ending injury. Can the Steelers go back-to-back knee issue guys in the draft? That's concerning. That to me would be like you're playing with fire here. When's it going to catch? Things could get bad. I like him. I think if you could trade down and there are no better options, I agree with you. I think I'd be on board with it. If you could pick up another third, maybe a fourth, I'd feel better about a third. I wouldn't pick him at 21. I'd pick him maybe at like 27, and I'd feel okay about that. If there's nobody else sitting there that you're like, that's a great shot. But like if Ben Morrison's sitting there, I have Ben Morrison. To be honest, I have Ben Morrison ahead of Revel. He'd probably be my 3. Revel be my 4. But I still think they're close. I would go Morrison at 21 and feel comfortable just because that ACL makes me nervous.
Let's go over to Darian Miller, who wants to know, what do you guys think about the Russ and Arthur Smith issues with Russ changing plays and audibles, which messed with the scheme?
Yeah, I mean, I look at it, and we talked about it earlier, I look at it simply as the offense sucked after that at the end. Like Arthur Smith said, you're messing with things, stop changing plays, and then nothing got better. Everything just got worse. So why let him change the plays? Sometimes a veteran quarterback knows what's going on out there, and Russ could have a lot of criticisms. That guy knows how to play quarterback. He's done this before. Russ does not stink mentally. Like, it's not like Russ's issues are he can't find the open guy and, he sees things slow and blow. That's not Russ's issues. Russ is a potential future Hall of Fame quarterback. That is who Russell Wilson is. It's the physical stuff that really brought Russ down the last 2 or 3 years. I mean, stopping that guy from changing plays and then seeing a decline in your offense shows you who was in the wrong and who was in the right in that situation.
Yeah, that's a little bit more alarming to me than the other thing, but at the same time, the timeline is interesting there, and that's something that we can get into on a different day. But the fact that rift started right as George Pickens goes down with an injury, it makes it feel like Arthur Smith, again, just my opinion, didn't have faith in the rest of that wide receiver room, which again, would match what everybody else believes. But no, that was an interesting little nugget dropped by Jerry Dulac, and I thought that when that happened, it makes sense from watching those last 5 weeks of Steelers football.
Certainly.
Let's go over to Matt, who wants to know, good afternoon, guys. Outside of Ibuka, who else would you like in the first round at wide receiver?
Matthew Golden is a name. I'm less sold on Matthew Golden than I'm not a big wide receiver in the first round guy. I've never have been. I know maybe I'm old school in that way, but I just think there's risk involved there. There's much less risk at other positions. Ibuka is a guy that I feel comfortable with. Matthew Golden's a guy I feel comfortable with. I kind of look at him like AD Mitchell, though, and I get it. Anthony Richardson and Joe Flacco were your quarterbacks, but didn't work out in Indy this season. I'm not saying he's a bust. He's definitely not a bust, not yet at least, but it makes me nervous. Matthew Golden would be my other one. Burton out of Missouri would be on that list, but I'm much lower on Burton than I am Golden or Ibuka. Those would be my 3. They'd probably be the only 3 late in the first round that I'd be okay with. If you're going McMillan and he falls to you, different story. But the realistic options, those would be my 3.
All right, let's go over to Corey Fisher, who says, what pick do you think we'd have to send along with George Pickens to get Garrett Wilson back from the New York Jets?
A 4th, I would say. Maybe a 3rd, but I would guess a 4th. Garrett Wilson's a stud, but so is George Pickens, and there's no massive jump in production there. It's the only difference is George has never had a quarterback, and Garrett Wilson had a quarter of a quarterback, which is cool. I guess Russ had a quarter of a quarterback. They both had the same situation go on there. I would say George in a 4th probably gets it done. George in a 3rd. Depends on how desperate the Jets are and how pissed off Garrett Wilson is. I'd make it happen, but I don't think it's going to.
Let's jump down to Miguel, who checks in and says, OCs have a habit of changing the way they would call a game when they have 0 faith in some of the personnel.
Yeah, it's 100% true. And that's why I'm excited about Arthur Smith this season. Get him a quarterback that he likes, aka Justin Fields. Get him some wide receivers. Make him feel good about the situation. Get him a running back that can do the things that he wants to do. I mean, people overlook the fact that like the Steelers didn't pick up Najee Harris's 5th-year option, and right from the jump was they want to see if he fits in Arthur Smith's offense. He didn't. I think Najee's a good running back, but he didn't. And I'm excited to see what somebody who does can do and what Arthur Smith can do with personnel, and especially the quarterback. Like Arthur Smith loved Justin Fields. What happens when he's ready to help Justin Fields become a good quarterback? How much does that change? I think it could change a lot.
All right, let's go back to Corey Fisher, who says, are there any rumors about them moving Zach Frazier to guard or tackle? He looks way too proficient and comfortable at center. Might be time to shake it up.
I don't know why you'd shake it up if he looks good there. I mean, I think Zach Frazier looks great at center, and there's no reason to move him around. I'm a big Zach Frazier at center guy. They won't ever change him there. No.
Let's go to Vibin with the Dogs, who says, Noah and Nick, I need some dinner ideas. What are y'all having?
I have no idea. We went on I definitely said this on the show many times. I was on a major health kick for like 2 years. Felt great. Was waiting to get married so that I could get fat. Got married, got fat. Now we're getting back to healthy. When we're in this mode, that's all the wife. She, you know what I mean? She's got the detailed. I send her stuff on Instagram sometimes, but I know how to make gross food. You know, you need me to make a steak? Fantastic. You need me to make some buffalo chicken? Fantastic. Some burgers, sloppy joes, dude. I will rock some sloppy joes. Healthy food, unless it's a salad, I'm lost, man. I'll make one damn good pasta. I'll tell you that much. But no. It's Wednesday. I don't know. What are you having?
I think just a sandwich. Like I said, we're leaving. We're leaving, so we can't make anything that's going to create leftovers. So
yeah, true.
Probably we got some sourdough. We'll probably cut a couple pieces and make some sandwiches.
Go some Taco Tuesday was yesterday. I don't know. Go some burgers. Burgers are a good move. Reliable. If not, dude, tacos are always the move. Taco Wednesday is a great night. Overrated or underrated.
Let's go to Eddie the Great, who says, does any other team in the league have former players hang around and put their input in more than the Pittsburgh Steelers?
100%. 100%. The Steelers are pretty good, to be honest. Like they've got a couple. They've got the big talking heads, but you don't have Troy Aikman all the time. Tom Brady, always. Bill Belichick for a while. Like, Bill Belichick left the Patriots, went on the McAfee show, and every single week had something to say about the Patriots that you were like, oh, damn, okay, crazy. Thanks, Bill. Appreciate that one. I mean, I think the Steelers are pretty calm, crazy enough. They just have massive headlines. The Steelers are a dramatic football team. Super dramatic football team. You know, a mentor of mine once told me that if I ever stop covering the Pittsburgh Steelers, that I better either cover a really good team or a really bad team, because that will be the only way that there will be as much to talk about as there is with the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I'm pretty sure that's held up. I was told that the day I got into this job, and pretty spot on. Had no idea what I was walking into. They're a dramatic football team. They got their headlines for days around this football team. And, you know, shout out to Ben and everybody else making some noise. I don't know why James is all over the place. I'm sure he's promoting some sort of protein shake that
because they asked
makes you look like James. Yeah.
He has nothing. He's like, all right, I got nothing better to do. Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's just going for a good time and a talk. That's good. That's what he wants to do.
If somebody's going to take me to New Orleans and tell me, hey, you just got to talk about some people sometimes, to be like, yeah, sure. Sounds good. Let's go have a good time.
All right. Let's go over to Edward, who wants to know, do you think Justin can improve his accuracy, especially running a 2-minute drill if the Steelers are behind in a game? And can he get us to a Super Bowl?
I would not say Justin Fields is a Super Bowl winning quarterback right now. I think he's got potential to develop into one, but right now where we currently stand, he is not a Super Bowl winning quarterback. That being said, there is no Super Bowl winning quarterback available this offseason. So the Steelers' best shot is to take a chance on somebody who could develop into that quarterback. I also don't think that his 2-minute drill is really good right now, but the Steelers spent an entire summer making Kenny Pickett fantastic at the 2-minute drill, and it worked.
Mm-hmm.
I think they could do it with Justin Fields. I'm not super worried about the first part of that. I think you could learn that one, especially with good coaching, which Justin's never had. The Super Bowl winner, the Steelers are not a Super Bowl contender in my eyes, and that has way more to do with everybody else than Justin.
Yeah, there's only 3 quarterbacks that can just by themselves elevate a team to be in that stratosphere. Yeah. 2 of them, or not 2 of them, 2 of them played on conference championship weekend. The other one is Joe Burrow. That's my opinion on that one. But let's go over to Lindsay, who says, does Troy Fautanu have a bad injury history?
Yes and no. Like he had the ACL tear and then the knee issue this year. But besides that, it's just like a red flag. So he was reportedly red flagged by medical staff during the NFL draft that something was going to go down with his knee. A lot of players are red flagged throughout their like NFL draft process. It usually lowers their stock. Fautanu probably would have been like a top 15 pick, fell to 21 or 20. And I feel like, it worked out for the Steelers. I wouldn't say he has a bad injury history. No, he does have some injuries, definitely, especially in the knees. But a lot of guys do these days. It's almost too common.
Yeah, similar thing happened with Peyton Wilson last year during the draft process. The fact that I don't think he has an ACL was like everybody's like, how much that's gonna pan out. Well, he was really good in his rookie year. Steelers got him at a pretty good value as well. So sometimes the red flag is just we're a little worried about this, but usually if your own independent medical staff checks that out, a lot of the times they dispel that. Now it didn't work for the Steelers, but I guess you could say they went 1 for 3 because Peyton was fine.
Yeah, I feel like they're okay, and it's too early to tell if it's got long-term effects.
Let's go to Vibin with the Dogs, who says, didn't we overachieve last season? We were projected to win 8 games and have a losing season. What are your thoughts?
I think anytime somebody says the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to have a losing season, I laugh because they will never have a losing season. I do think the Steelers overachieved, certainly. Just from the start of that season, the Steelers overachieved, and we laid it out for everybody when it was happening. Like, if the Steelers went on a 5-game losing streak or split up their 5-game losing streak to where they lost to Cincinnati the first time and beat them the second time, or they lost to Baltimore the first time and beat them the second time, they look totally different. The alarms are much calmer. The way they looked in the playoff game was very disappointing, but I don't think they overachieved, or I think they did overachieve. But I also feel that they were a team that when they were overachieving, like they had the momentum to keep winning and to pull this thing off, or at least more of this thing off. And the fact that it was an utter downfall is, it just shows that you aren't an underdog team and you can't be an underdog team. Like, those teams win Super Bowls sometimes, and the Steelers aren't built to be one of them right now.
Yeah. The simple fact is anybody that was projecting 8 wins is not in Pittsburgh and did not pay attention to the team. You projected 11. I projected 10. They finished with 10. So if anything, they just did what was expected of them in the 2024 season.
Yep.
Let's go to Bad Intentions, who says, if Jackson Dart is available in the second round, do the Steelers take him?
If he's available at the end of the second round, I mean, there's a conversation to be had there. Definitely. Why would you'd have to at least consider it. That's a far drop for Jackson Dart. I think he's going first round. As crazy as it sounds, I think he's going first round. Or like super early second, because a team like the Raiders, he's going to end up being Will Levis. So he's going to end up doing. There's going to be a team like Vegas, like New York, like the Jets, like maybe Cleveland, who just say, like Tennessee maybe, who just say, screw it, we need a quarterback. Here's one. We're going for it. I would be shocked if he's there late in the second round. I think there's a conversation to be had about the Steelers drafting him if he is there. And I think they'd have that conversation.
Let's jump down to the next question here. What about taking a risk on Nick Chubb 2 years after his injury? I think he's going to be back to normal.
I would love Nick Chubb. I don't disagree on signing Nick Chubb. If the Steelers want to sign Nick Chubb, great. My thing is, if you sign Nick Chubb and if you sign, which you assume they're going to sign Jaylen Warren, you still draft a running back within the first 4 rounds. Because that's your future. You have no idea how much Nick Chubb's got left in the tank. You have no idea if Jaylen Warren's going to turn into something. You might as well have 3. And if Nick Chubb stinks, you didn't just miss on a pretty good running back class. So that's my thing. I look at it like this running back class is so good, you can't avoid it. You might as well try to hit big because it has so many big hitters. Don't avoid it. If you want to go get 2 and make the 3rd one Chubb, I agree. I would not be upset about it.
Let's go to Cole, who wants to know, what are your thoughts on Jimmy Horn in the late rounds?
I mean, we've been told the Steelers love Jimmy Horn. Love him. Convince him not to play in the Shrine Bowl, which is pretty big. I like Jimmy Horn. I mean, I'm not like overly impressed with Jimmy Horn's tape, but I do think that he's got potential. I do like that he learned from Deion Sanders. I do like that he was the number 2 behind Travis Hunter, which I think speaks a little bit of volumes. And for a late round pick to bring him in, like, you want to get him in the 6th round, I'm cool with it. I think anything above that, they gave up they got one for Kenny. What'd they get for Kenny? 4th?
I think
they got a 4th.
Yeah.
If you want to get him in the 5th round, I'm okay with that. If you want to get him in the 7th, I'm okay with that. That's where I'm going. And at that point, everybody's a risk, so I'm okay with it.
All right, let's jump down to Chris, who says, Noah, other than Frazier and Siamalu, I have no confidence in the rest of the line. Yes, there's talent, but they just can't seem to fix their issues.
It's way too early for the issues to be fixed. Like these guys, you're looking at Mason McCormick, who is a 4th round guy who had to start half of his rookie season because somebody got hurt, and then the guy who replaced him wasn't playing well enough. Mason McCormick should not have been starting in 2024. I think he's got a massive upside. I think he got tired. I think he got injured, banged up late at the end there, but I thought he looked good at times early in the season when he was the starter. I have a lot of faith in Mason McCormick. I have some hope in Broderick Jones. You have to have some hope in Broderick Jones. He's got issues, definitely, but it's too early to move on from a guy like that. It's too early to give up on a guy like that. You have to try and see if it works. And Troy Fautanu is a fantastic player. Fantastic player. He's got to stay healthy, but he was fantastic coming out of the draft, and he looked good in the times that he played early in the season. So I think Troy is going to be just fine. I have a lot of faith in Mason McCormick. Broderick's a question mark, but a question mark with massive upside. So much upside, he could be the best of the group if it works out.
Yeah, let's not forget, Mason looked like I would say, league average starting guard at some points this season, and he was, depending on who you ask, the Steelers' 3rd or 4th option to play at guard, right? They had James Daniels and they had Nate Herbig.
Yeah,
and
true.
Then it depends on who you ask. It could have been Spencer Anderson or Mason McCormick next. So even if he was the 3rd,
it was Spencer Anderson guard next. If
they
put Spencer Anderson got benched. People forget
so
that.
McCormick was 4th.
Yeah, he was
and
their
he still
last
played
option.
league average as a rookie out of the 4th round. So I think because of that, it has earned him a little bit of faith going forward that he will grow and become a little bit better whenever he's actually expected to be playing and being in that role.
I agree. They said it when they drafted him. They brought up James Daniels being out of contract in 2025 like twice in that press conference. They know what the plan is. They have big upside in that guy. I like Mason. I'm a big Mason McCormick guy, actually. I think he'll be okay. Broderick, question mark, but question mark with potential.
And young. But let's move on and finish off with Eric's question, which is, where is Will Howard currently projected to get drafted, and why don't I ever hear anything about him?
He is a quiet dude in this cycle, huh? You don't hear his name. You heard his name during the national championship, and then it kind of faded real fast. It was wasn't a lot of momentum. The Steelers, I think in PFFs, maybe NFL.com's, one of those two mock drafts, he landed in Pittsburgh in the 3rd round. Maybe that's where he goes. I could see him being a 2nd round pick, maybe a 3rd round pick. I don't think he gets further than the 3rd round. I don't know. I think he is an option for the Steelers. They obviously like Will Howard. Jerry Dulac floated Will Howard's name out there. If he's available in the 3rd, great. I'm not taking a chance on him in the 2nd. Jackson Dart is like the guy that has like He could have a ton of upside, but you don't really know. So maybe you take a chance on him. But I don't know. I think this quarterback class is so bad that you take your loss and you just move on and you go to next season.
That's a wrap for today then.
Awesome. With that said, guys, we are heading out of here. Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. Make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/All Steelers Talk. Check us out anywhere you get your podcasts. And as always, find all of our work at si.com/NFL/Steelers. With that said, we'll be back tomorrow. And hopefully with some anticipation that TJ is going to walk away Defensive Player of the Year. But we'll talk about it tomorrow. With that said, enjoy another beautiful day in the Berg. Peace.